It's Friday, October 5th. Let's talk PlayStation. So let's not waste any time here and get right into it. We got some hot PlayStation news stories to talk about from this past week. Like, for example, actually, last week when I uploaded LTPS, it didn't take too long after for Sony Interactive Entertainment President and CEO of America, Shawn Layden, to confirm that there actually won't be a PSX 2018, which is rather upsetting. Now, PSX is normally around November-December area, and they usually announce it fairly close to when the event is going to accept tickets and things like that. So we were really expecting this quite soon, but actually that won't be the case. Shawn was actually quoted as saying, "We won't have it in the States this year. The reasons behind that are really we have a lot of progress that we're making on our games now that we have Spider-Man out the door. We're looking down into 2019 games like Dreams and Days Gone. But we wouldn't have enough to bring people all together in some location in North America to have that event. We don't want to set expectations really high and then not deliver on that. It was a hard decision, but we have determined that this year we will not hold PlayStation Experience." Now, it is worth noting there was a PSX in Southeast Asia this year. That was in Bangkok, Thailand, and that was back in August. And of course, that was a local event. There was nothing major. There was games, there was gameplay, things like that, but not a showcase, certainly. People aren't really expecting major announcements to come out of that event. They're expecting it in North America during an actual press conference of some sort, and I think that's why they're avoiding it in the States, because that is the place where people are going to be expecting major announcements. And admittedly, this is what I've been saying for a year, which is that I don't know how Sony's going to do E3 2018 or TGS or Paris Games Week or a PSX, because we know what all of Sony's developers are doing. They're either making their last PS4 games or they're starting PS5 projects. They just don't have anything. And I think 2019 will be a much more exciting year because we could possibly see like PS5 stuff finally, right? 2019 is going to be the really exciting year, but the end of 2018 and early 2019 is going to be fairly quiet right now. So starting October 12th in Japan, PS4 Pro is seeing an official MSRP price cut. Now, normally in Japan, the system fetches for about 44,980 yen. That will actually be dropping down to 39,980 yen. Now, translated to USD, that's roughly $50, give or take a little bit, but certainly a good price drop nonetheless. Now, will we see a price cut like that in the West, in Europe, in North America? Certainly possible, especially given the fact that we're going into the holiday season. And if you remember last year, actually, you would actually be hard-pressed to find a PS4 Pro at $400. During the holidays, you see a lot of retailer price cuts. PS4 Pros were going for $350. PlayStation VR had a lot of great deals, down from $350 to as low as $250 I've seen. And of course, there's a big distinction between a retailer price cut and an MSRP price cut. But when you get an official cut down to $350, that means you can see even better retailer sales lower than $350. So it would be expected to see that come to the West, hopefully. And that's interesting too, because we've been talking about this recently, but it just seems like there's a shortage of PS4 Pros going around. You can't just get a PS4 Pro by itself. They're actually being sold at a higher margin by third-party resellers on eBay and Amazon, which is interesting. So if you actually want to get a PS4 Pro, you have to wait for these new bundles coming with like Call of Duty Black Ops 4 or Red Dead Redemption. It's weird. I think Sony's in a rock and a hard place where the demand for PS4 Pro is upticked just a little bit, but it's a low-volume system, so they don't want to increase manufacturing on the off chance that they start to meet that demand and then exceed it too much, and then you have all this retailer space being filled with PS4 Pros that nobody's buying. Now, getting into a crossplay news story, I think this one's interesting because now that Sony is finally playing nice with everybody, or at least starting with Fortnite, Microsoft finally responded saying more or less, oh, this is great news and all that, and they are saying that they are open to getting Minecraft PS4 crossplay to work as well. This is a much different scenario because Fortnite and many other games are third-party games by third-party developers and publishers, and I think those are the ones that Sony's most likely to deal with and work with. And this is the part of this conversation, is that many third-party developers and publishers want this. That's why this is an irrelevant conversation now when people say, oh, 10 years ago, Microsoft didn't want it. Like, that's all not. It's a different time, and it's something developers want. It's not a manufacturer thing anymore. It's not politics. Developers want this. But Minecraft, actually, Microsoft owns Minecraft. Microsoft is the publisher for this. So that's why this, I think, is a very sensitive issue. You're probably not going to see this from Sony whatsoever, especially given Microsoft's probable rules, which will be that they want an Xbox Live login to make this work. They want it to be on their terms, and we know damn well Sony's not going to do that. In fact, during this week's PlayStation Blogcast, where Shawn Layden was on the show answering a number of questions, he had defended the company's approach to crossplay, saying it's not as easy as people thought. It wasn't like flipping a switch, or it's a very multi-dimensional issue that they had to analyze and work towards, which I still think is a load of BS. We knew the company's stance on this subject. They didn't want to do it. We have many quotes from third-party developers who are very impartial about this. We know that they had asked for this many times, and Sony gave us a firm no. They almost never admitted that they wanted to do this. They never said they were actively working towards it. We got one quote from Shawn Layden where they said they were looking into it, which was very open-ended and vague and kind of made it seem like this may be something that would never come. So I'm still under the assumption that the company was under high pressure to make this happen, and I'm glad they did make it happen. But it's just that, you know, based on how they're acting, I don't think you could ever hope for the PS4 version of Minecraft to get crossplay. That's probably not going to happen, at least not the way Microsoft wants it. Now moving on to PS4 exclusive dreams, Media Molecule's co-founder Alex Evans recently talked with Game Informer and did a very large expose on the title. We got a lot of details about it, which is great because now it really feels like the game is going to come out at some point. And that's an odd thing to say because we've actually seen a lot of footage of Dreams at trade shows, and Media Molecule does a lot of live streams, so we've seen a lot of the game. It seems like no matter how much we see, it just doesn't feel like it's coming out anytime soon. But now that we have a lot of details, this might lighten you up a little bit. So the first detail is that we'll actually still get that beta in 2018, which is odd because he had also confirmed that a long time ago that we'd get a beta in 2018, and even though the months rolled on, a lot of us were speculating like, okay, we're not getting this beta. No, apparently we're still getting this beta. I don't know when because we're running out of time here. We only have a few months left, but there will still be a beta. And he also confirmed that whatever you make in the beta will actually roll over into the main game, which is also pretty cool because if you remember in the Little Big Planet beta days, anything you made in the LBP beta did not go into the final game, which was rather unfortunate. Now, going into details about the creation aspects, Alex got a little more detailed about this, and he actually kind of gave us an idea of the scope of what you can make, and it was easier for him to answer this in terms of what you can't make. And basically what he said was, you can't make an MMO in Dreams, but that this game is like an engine, more or less. I mean, you really can do something very complex, whether it's an M-rated game, games that runs at 60 frames per second, games that run at 30 frames per second. If you have a PS4 Pro, you may get 60 frames out of any title that a community member makes, although that's still largely dependent on the complexity of the game. You can do multiplayer games, you can do a battle royale style kind of situation. When asked about some of the easier games that people can make, he said Wipeout was a good example of something that you could probably do in Dreams, and he's fully expecting the community to do a lot of replications and heavily inspired aspects of other games. So he encourages original ideas, but he knows people are going to recreate things in Dreams, and he fully expects that to happen. Now, for somebody like me, I built a lot in Little Big Planet. I've got I probably close to 1,000 hours of building in Little Big Planet. I've always considered myself an intermediate builder. I can never do super complex stuff, but I was certainly better than your average Little Big Planet builder. And the thing about Little Big Planet is that it was quite accessible. I mean, it was, the game was quite easy in play style. It was just a side scroller. It had 3 planes of foreground, background, and a middle ground. And just based off that aspect of gameplay, it was quite easy for somebody to go in there and just understand that, okay, I'm going to make a side scroller and I don't need to use all 3 planes. I can just tab over this material and draw over the whole thing, and I can just make it very simple, and a lot of people got into it that way. But with Dreams, I don't want to say it's intimidating or that it's going to be too hard or too complex for people, but I think maybe daunting is the right word. The fact that you can go into this blank canvas that's completely three-dimensional, you've got a Y, X, and Z axis, and there's just so much that you can do that it almost seems like that would be a big roadblock for a lot of people that go into it. And even though these creation tools might be very easy to use, and you don't have to get into the complex building nature of the game, and you can use very basic materials, the very fact that it's just so open, I think, is going to be a big mental hurdle for some people and will discourage building rather than people wanting to make something. Of course, I hope I'm wrong about that, but in terms of expert building, Alex Evans also confirmed that you can actually use a keyboard for this game, now not a mouse, and he actually says that a DualShock is a much better cursor to navigate the menus and use and things like that, but actually you can use a keyboard. I find that fascinating, probably because you could do a lot of keyboard shortcuts and things like that, who knows how that's really going to play out, but I would imagine it's something like that in terms of the building aspect. So if you are going to be an expert builder in this game and you are a very creative person, a keyboard will probably be will certainly come in handy when you're building in this game. Now, going back to the multiplayer thing, Alex did confirm that there will not be multiplayer at launch, but you can expect at some point for the game to have at least 4 players, possibly up to 8, which I think's funny that he's saying that you could do a battle royale game when okay, well, you're only going to really have 8 people in here at a time, and that's at the most, apparently. It could be as low as 4. He also mentioned that you could do asynchronous building at some point. They want to do something like that, where you could have people come in and out of a level to edit and work on things, you know, on their own time, which I think is a needed feature for a game like this. And the last major detail that I thought was pretty interesting is that PlayStation VR. The game will have support. In terms of PlayStation VR stuff, he mentions that if you're making a PlayStation VR level, it will be like Mario Maker in the sense that you have to play it and finish it before you publish it. Although I figured that would kind of be the case for all levels, but he mentions this specifically for VR titles. And as I've mentioned, Dreams is totally a game for me. I'm super excited for this game, but I can't dispel these fears I have that this game is just going to come out and totally bomb, because this isn't really a game that sells nowadays. People are not going to buy this game. That really frightens me, and I hope that isn't the case, but I can't picture any other scenario. I can't see this game topping the boards. You know, it's going to come out, it's going to have its niche, but I don't think this is going to have the same pull that Little Big Planet did. And you have no idea how wrong I want to be about that. Now, for our final news story, before I even get into it, let me just mention, this past Monday I uploaded a video about PlayStation Network name changes. In that video I had talked about why you can't change your PSN ID, because Sony's talked about it over the years. And then near the end of that video, I had mentioned how I think it's going to be happening very soon. And I filmed and edited that video a few days prior to uploading it, but that was quite recent, right? Now comes this rumor. So this is coming from Kotaku, reported by Jason Schreier. He has sources from 3 different people at 3 different game companies discussing how that they are working on bug fixing and testing their games to make sure that this is working for Sony's upcoming PSN name changing feature. He also has a 4th person from a game company that apparently has internal Sony documentation that is, it's a photo showing how on a PSN user profile, it clearly indicates that you can edit your PSN ID. And this is big news, finally coming. It seems like this actually was, like, because, so to talk about the video that I posted on Monday, my basic summary of that is that because of the 2017 comment from Sean Layden, he had discussed how he feels that this won't be a problem at PSX 2018. Now, mind you, we don't have a PSX 2018 this year, but that was an indirect way of him saying that this feature has about a year timeline of coming out. Since we're getting close to December, that lines up perfectly that we might be getting this feature. So that's why I kind of thought, this is coming soon. Well, this is definitely the case now. Now I think it's just a matter of when it happens. I don't even think this is more of a rumor. It seems, I mean, yeah, it's a rumor, but I'm quite confident. This seems like it's finally happening, and we know that Sony's been working a long time at this. And you can check that video to see the history of this, because Sony's engineers have been working on this for a very long time to make this a reality. Now, the rumor also goes on to talk about how this is still going to be an issue for older multiplayer games, and to the extent of what this is going to look like if you try to play an older game after you've changed your ID, we don't exactly know. It might require patching. It's who knows what this is really going to look like. There could be some repercussions to changing your name and then going back and playing a multiplayer game. Maybe your progress is reset or something, even though your name would still be reflected. I think the important thing was keeping purchases, keeping trophies, keeping your friends lists, things like that. Sony learning how to unbind the data and allowing you to change the display ID. They never have gone into specifics, but we have a basic rough idea of what their problem is, and that's essentially what it is. And it looks like they may have finally come to a solution. The interesting thing is that the documentation apparently shows an edit PSN ID scenario, which maybe implies that you wouldn't have to pay for this. I mean, sure, you could go into that at some point, hit edit name, and then it would prompt a payment of some kind, but you would imagine that changing your name would link you to the PlayStation Store, or it would be something you add to your cart in the PlayStation Store. But the fact that it's on the PSN profile where you can easily edit it right then and there, this may be a situation where, going back to the February survey, that February survey implied that you could change it every 6 months or something for free. So maybe this would actually be a completely free feature, just with a time penalty, which I think a lot of people would certainly be okay with. Either way, I think this is coming soon. How, where, and when it gets announced, I'm not sure, but I would imagine it would just be a PlayStation blog post or a Twitter post coming with a YouTube video, something like that. This is the end of the year. I mean, we're going into the holidays. There's no major events lined up or anything like that, so that's probably where it's going to get announced, and I think this will come before the end of the year, if not very, very soon. Those are some of the news stories I want to talk about with you guys from this past week. Now getting into Let's Talk Plus, our weekly Let's Talk PlayStation giveaway, where one of you could win a $10 PSN code. I'd like to congratulate Alex Ruiz for winning this week's episode from Sacramento, California. Congratulations, Alex. I'll be contacting you very shortly via email. Just respond back to me so that I know you got it, and then I will send you your code. If you would like to win next week's episode, all you got to do is follow the link down below to the Gleam website. You can follow me on Twitter. You can subscribe to the channel. You can retweet this week's episode of Let's Talk PlayStation, all for an entry to get the $10 code, and stay tuned next Friday for the announcement of the winner. Other than that, like I had mentioned earlier, this past Monday we did the PlayStation Network name changes video. Now that we know they're coming soon, hopefully, you can still watch that video because it does go over the history of this as early as back in the PS3 days, and it does explain why Sony took so long to provide name changes. And also on Wednesday, I uploaded a new channel trailer, which you don't have to see, but it's just something for people that are unsubscribed to the channel. You know, it's like a minute long. It's just a little something cool. So if you saw that and you stopped by to check it out, thanks. I appreciate all the kind comments. And as always, thank you so much for the overwhelming support that you all have given me over the years. I keep saying this, but man, you guys are just the bee's knees, man. I love you. But anyway, that concludes this week's episode of Let's Talk PlayStation. I'm Ryan Benecki. Thank you all so much for talking with me, and I will see you guys next Friday.